Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started.
Gravitas, co-presented by SBI Mutual Fund, a partner for life. Skoda Superb, best in next class. Co-powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist. Amstrad, get real, get Amstrad.
I'm sure you know this by now. Joe Biden is the clear winner. He's won the popular vote. He's won the majority of the electoral college votes. He's flipped the swing states in the US. The result is in Biden's favor, and there's no way that result is flipping. But Donald Trump won't agree. And he has numbers too. This election has proved that Trump's vote bank is not only intact, it has grown. More than 70 million Americans voted in Trump's favor. Some of them are taking to the streets across America and they agree with the president. They believe this election has been rigged. Trump says he'll go to court to fight for his case. The problem is there is no evidence of rigging yet. And the question is, what happens in the meantime? How will Biden's team prepare to take office? How can Trump create roadblocks? What is each side planning and doing? And how is America coping with this endless fight? On Gravitas tonight, we discuss how Trump may be on his way out, but Trumpism is here to stay. Also on the show, another country is counting the ballots. Myanmar held an election this weekend. Aung San Suu Kyi is on course to win. A new row in Nepal, this time over the visit of India's chief of spy agency, RAW. Prime Minister Oli explains the meeting. And China is building a rail line near Arunachal Pradesh as its army releases videos of soldiers applying sunscreen. We'll explain, but we begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
Even after being hailed globally for its handling of the coronavirus, Taiwan is yet to receive an invite to a key World Health Organization meeting this week, focusing on the COVID-19 pandemic. This, according to Taiwan's foreign ministry, is due to obstruction from China. In what is being seen as a major victory for Azerbaijan, its security forces claim to have captured the key town of Shusha from Armenian separatists in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Armenia still insists that the fighting for the strategically vital area is ongoing. Amid growing protests against France in the Muslim world, France's foreign minister has visited Egypt, asserting France's profound respect for Islam. The minister said that the anti-French campaign in the Muslim world was often the result of a distortion of French President Emmanuel Macron's comments on the issue. The United States has become the first nation worldwide since the pandemic began to surpass 10 million coronavirus infections, as the third wave of the COVID-19 virus surges across the nation. Japanese Emperor Naruhito's younger brother, Crown Prince Fumihito, has been formally sworn in as first in line to the Chrysanthemum throne. Emperor Naruhito has no sons, and his daughter is barred from inheriting the throne, despite calls for reform. The traditional palace ritual was scaled down due to the coronavirus pandemic. Thailand's government continues facing persistent protests as thousands are on the streets calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha and his cabinet. Meanwhile, key pro-democracy groups have sent thousands of letters to the country's King Maha Vajiralongkorn demanding reforms. Virgin Hyperloop has trialed its first ever journey with passengers in the desert of Nevada.
Yes!
The futuristic transport concept involves pods inside vacuum tubes carrying passengers at high speeds. Tropical storm Eta has made landfall in Florida in the United States, slamming Cuba. The storm has already battered Mexico and Central American nations, leaving a trail of destruction with hundreds dead and missing. Indian cricket captain Virat Kohli will return home midway from the tour of Australia after being granted leave on parental grounds. Kohli and his wife Anushka Sharma are expecting their first child in January, and the BCCI says Kohli had informed the selectors that he would return after the first test in Adelaide. Ajinkya Rahane will step in as captain, though the BCCI has not indicated if Kohli will return to Australia for any of the remaining tests, which get over only on January 19th. Rohit Sharma has been added to the test squad after a hamstring injury had ruled him out initially for the full series. Mexican golfer Carlos Ortiz has picked up his maiden PGA Tour title with a two-shot victory at the Houston Open. The 29-year-old began the final round a shot behind overnight leader Sam Burns, but carded a bogey-free round of 5 under par to reach 13 under for the tournament. Ortiz was run close by world number 1 Dustin Johnson and Japan's Hideki Matsuyama. But both missed birdies late on that would have given them a share of the lead. Ortiz held back-to-back birdies as he closed out the first victory after 118 PGA Tour starts.
America's long wait ended on Saturday. Joe Biden has won, Donald Trump has lost, but he doesn't agree. He says he will contest the result. Where does that leave Joe Biden and the rest of America? Will they wait for the courts to decide, or will they start preparing for the transition? It's a bit of both, it seems. Let's bring you up to speed with what's happening in the Biden camp. The president-elect is gearing up to move into the White House. After the celebration over the weekend, his team goes to work today. They're planning the transition. This is the period where the incoming government shapes up. This is also the period where key cabinet positions are decided. Essentially, Joe Biden will be using these months to build his inner circle and announce his core team. By the looks of it, he will also be dealing with Donald Trump in courts. The president won't let him inherit the White House peacefully. Reports say Team Trump has refused to sign a letter. The letter that would allow Team Biden to formally begin work this week. Trump is stonewalling Biden. When a new president is about to take office in the US, the outgoing government must enable the transition. America even has a law to facilitate this. It is called the Pre-Election Presidential Transition Act. What does the law say? It says that Biden's transition team is entitled to use government office space and equipment. It is entitled to access government officials. It is also entitled to money. The government must pay the expenses of the transition team. But Donald Trump has not conceded, so officially the transition has not begun. And that is not good news, because transition is a very critical period. A lot needs to be done. According to reports, more than 4,000 positions will have to be filled when a new president takes charge. The transition team has to identify and vet all these candidates. They have to arrange for the occupancy of executive residences like the White House and Camp David. Everything, down to the last detail, has to be planned, and this includes the handover of nuclear launch codes to the next president, better known as gold codes in America's defense and security establishment. So what Trump is doing is slowing down all of this. But he cannot really stop Biden unless the courts rule in his favor. Biden, in the meantime, has already begun planning his transition. He is looking at assembling one of the most diverse cabinets in US history. The first appointments will be of the White House staff. The cabinet appointments won't be made public until around Thanksgiving, the end of this month. Biden has even raised money for the team. In the month of May, at least $7 million were raised for the transition. Biden is expected to kick off his term with a bang. Reports say he's planning a slew of executive actions, immediate reversal of some of Trump's decisions. This could include cancelling America's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord. In Washington, the ball has already begun rolling for the official change of guard. Last week, we told you how the Secret Service has stepped up the protection for both Biden and Harris. This security cover will expand once both leaders take oath. Joe Biden will have his calendar full in the coming days. As president-elect, he will now receive several briefings. And this includes the president's daily briefing, background briefings on covert actions, intelligence briefings. The American security establishment is now supposed to brief Biden and his team on global dynamics, on potential threats, on national security, basically anything that a president needs to know to keep his country safe. Of course, there will be a meeting between the president-elect and the president at the White House. Not immediately, but at some point, we hope. Once Donald Trump accepts the result or he gets a clear verdict from the court, whenever it happens, Joe Biden and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, will receive a tour of the White House. Traditionally, this is what they do during this tour. They're also asked about the White House decor and if they would like to change it. The Biden camp has also created a Twitter page to keep everyone informed about the transition. There's also a website called Build Back Better. Here, Biden and Harris list the Wuhan virus, economic recovery, racial equity and climate change as their first 4 priorities. In fact, Joe Biden wants to focus on the virus from day one. A task force is being created. It will be led by an Indian American, Dr. Vivek Murthy, the former U.S. Surgeon General, someone who has served during the Obama administration too. We expect the Biden camp to make more announcements today. We'll be keeping track of that. Also in focus will be Kamala Harris, who has created history in this election. She is the first woman, the first Indian American, and the first person of color to be elected vice president of the U.S. But for Harris, this is not the first time she's shattered a glass ceiling. Our next report tells you more about America's next vice president.
The city of Berkeley, California, has a new tourist attraction: the childhood home of Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. This humble home is a school now, but this is where Harris began her journey to the high office. A daughter of Jamaican and Indian parents, Harris says she had a stroller eye view of the civil rights movement as a student at Howard University. She split her time between the debate team and the National Mall, where she protested against apartheid in South Africa. Throughout her career, Harris broke barriers.
I, Kamala Harris,
do solemnly swear.
In 2002, she became San Francisco's first district attorney of color, a victory backed by the strong support of her family.
I was in California at that time, and Kamala was thinking of standing for the DA post, and we were talking about it and we knew about it. And from that time I knew that Kamala wanted to get somewhere, and she said, I'm going to do it and I'm going to become the DA. And that's how she did. She became a DA, then she became an Attorney General, then she became a Senator.
I'm so overwhelmed.
In 2010, Harris was the first black woman to be elected California's Attorney General.
The process has value.
6 years later, Harris made another record. She became the first Indian American senator of California. Sworn in by the then Vice President, now President-elect Joe Biden.
And you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which you're about to enter, to help you God.
I do.
Few had known then, Team Biden-Harris together will ascend to take over the most powerful public offices in the world. With Harris shining as the lead campaigner within the Indian American community.
I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
These are two leaders with distinct Indian connections. While Harris was born to Indian mother, Joe Biden has his own Indian connection. While visiting Mumbai in 2013, he had revealed the story of Capital George Biden, an ancestor of the U.S. President-elect who worked with the East India Company and had an Indian wife. It's safe to say the Desi factor will be hard to miss in this American administration. Bureau Report, we are World is One.
Let's talk about Donald Trump now. Technically, he's still the president of the United States. Numerically, he's lost his next term in office. At 214 electoral votes, he's far away from winning the majority of votes in the Electoral College. But Trump is in denial, and there's no way he's conceding. Over the last 2 days, Donald Trump has been busy playing golf. His official calendar is empty. While his deputy Mike Pence is chairing a Wuhan virus task force meeting, Trump does not feel the need to take stock of the pandemic. Instead, the buzz is the president's campaign is trying to see if it's possible for Trump to hold rallies. What for? To bolster his claims that the election has been stolen. Tonight, let me give you the story of Donald Trump in 5 questions and answers. Question number 1, what are Trump's options? 2, what are the lawsuits facing Donald Trump? 3, what are the powers of a lame duck president? In other words, a president who is on his way out. What can he do? 4, what are Trump's aides saying? And 5, what about the rumors of First Lady Melania Trump seeking a divorce? Yes, those reports are also doing the rounds. Let's take them one by one. First up, what are the options before Donald Trump? Conceding is the most practical one, gracefully beginning the procedure of transfer of power. He can start by making the traditional call to the president-elect. But it's Donald Trump we're talking about. He's manufactured his own version of reality. He says he's won the election and his second term has been stolen. So Trump will challenge the result. He will go to court, file lawsuits. Trump released a statement over the weekend. It read, and I quote, "The simple fact is this election is far from over. Beginning Monday, our campaign will start prosecuting our case in court to ensure election laws are fully upheld and the rightful winner is seated." There are 2 legal options before Donald Trump. Option number 1, he can ask for a recount. The rules are different for each state. In Wisconsin, for example, a candidate can ask for recount if the margin is less than 1 percentage point. In Georgia, the margin must be less than 0.5% of the votes cast. In Pennsylvania, there is an automatic statewide recount if the margin between the candidates is less than 0.5%. Are recounts normal? Between the year 2000 and 2019, there were 5,778 statewide elections, 5,778 in 19 years. The number of recounts was only 31. Only 3 of those recounts resulted in a reversal of results. Option number 2. Donald Trump's campaign can convince the judges that some ballots have been cast illegally, and for that, they would need evidence. Trump's team has already filed several lawsuits in battleground states. Some of them have been rejected. But did you know that there are several lawsuits facing Trump himself? Which brings us to question number 2. What legal challenges does Trump face when he leaves the White House? There is an ongoing criminal investigation into Trump and the Trump Organization. Then there are the allegations of tax evasion. Trump could face a criminal prosecution by the U.S. Department of Justice. New York's Attorney General Letitia James has an ongoing tax fraud investigation into Trump and the Trump Organization. Donald Trump is also facing a defamation case. He was sued by former Elle magazine writer E. Jean Carroll, who's also accused Trump of rape. Trump is also facing a lawsuit by reality show contestant Summer Zervos. She also accused Trump of kissing her against her will. This is a long list, and it spells trouble. As president, Donald Trump was immune from prosecution for criminal offenses. But this cloak of immunity will disappear come 20th of January. And that's the day Joe Biden officially becomes the president of the United States. Next question. What powers does Trump have till then? In other words, what are the powers of an outgoing president of the U.S.? Will Donald Trump be allowed to enjoy all the powers vested in the President of the United States of America? The answer is yes. Trump can use the next 2 months to create serious trouble for Joe Biden if he wants to. He can declassify sensitive information. He could also order missile strikes. He could withdraw troops. He can also issue preemptive pardons for himself and his family. And this is not the first time this will happen. Bill Clinton, by the way, issued scores of pardons on his last day in office. The list included his brother and the husband of one of his fundraisers. So Trump won't be the first. Question number 4. What have Trump's advisors been telling him? Reports say there is a clear divide in Trump's inner circle. One side is asking him to concede defeat. The other side is asking Trump to fight on. The First Lady of the US, Melania Trump, and son-in-law Jared Kushner are reportedly advising the president to accept defeat. But his sons, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, want him to fight on. Then there are also prominent Republicans, like Senator Lindsey Graham and House Representative Kevin McCarthy, who want Trump to not give up. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump has lost the election. Some reports say he may be losing his wife too. That's question number 5. Is Melania Trump divorcing Donald Trump? Reports claim that she is, quote-unquote, counting the minutes until divorce. A lot has already been said and written about Trump's marriage being on the rocks. Reports also say Melania Trump burst into tears when Donald Trump won the race to the White House in 2016. A recent book claimed that she waited 5 months before relocating to the White House. She apparently was negotiating a post-nuptial agreement to give her son Barron an equal share of the Trump fortune. Donald Trump and Melania have been married for 15 years. So Trump won't concede. He will make history by refusing to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. And if he changes his mind, here are some tips on how it's done. Concession speeches of past presidents. Take a look.
Thank you so much.
For the country's first 100 years or so, conceding a race wasn't part of the process at all. It was only until 1896 that it became an election custom, when Republican William McKinley defeated Democrat William Jennings Bryan. Ever since, losing candidates, including sitting presidents, have conceded to their opponents. George H.W. Bush called on Americans to set aside differences and rally behind their new president.
Here's the way we see it, and the country should see it, that the people have spoken, and we respect the majesty of the democratic system. I just called Governor Clinton over in Little Rock and offered my congratulations. He did run a strong campaign. I wish him well in the White House, and I want the country to know that our entire administration will work closely with his team to ensure the smooth transition of power. There is important work to be done, and America must always come first. So we will get behind this new president and wish him well.
4 years later, former Senator Bob Dole rebuked his supporters for booing Clinton's second victory, reminding them that Clinton was his opponent, not his enemy.
I've talked to President Clinton. We had a good visit, and I congratulated him. I have said repeatedly in this campaign that the president is my opponent, not my enemy, and I wish him well, and I pledge my support in whatever advances the cause of a better America. That's what the race was about in the first place, a better America as we go into the next century.
The 2000 election between Al Gore and George W. Bush was settled in the U.S. Supreme Court. But even Al Gore, who did not agree with the court's decision, conceded for the sake of unity.
Now the U.S. Supreme Court has spoken. Let there be no doubt, while I strongly disagree with the court's decision, I accept it. I accept the finality of this outcome, which will be ratified next Monday in the Electoral College. And tonight, for the sake of our unity as a people and the strength of our democracy, I offer my concession.
Another concession speech that has gone viral on social media is that of Senator John McCain. He lost to Barack Obama in 2008, when America got its first African-American president.
A little while ago, I had the honor of calling Senator Barack Obama to congratulate him, to congratulate him on being elected the next president of the country that we both love. In a contest as long and difficult as this campaign has been, his success alone commands my respect for his ability and perseverance. But that he managed to do so by inspiring the hopes of so many millions of Americans who had once wrongly believed that they had little at stake or little influence in the election of an American president is something I deeply admire and commend him for achieving. This is an historic election, and I recognize the special significance it has for African Americans and for the special pride that must be theirs tonight.
Concession speeches are a signal of commitment to the peaceful transfer of power. While there is no legal requirement for Trump to give a concession speech, refusing to do so will not extend his powers beyond January 20th, unless the Supreme Court intervenes on his behalf. Bureau Report, We Own. World is One.
I want you to focus on 3 points. 1, Joe Biden is not your ideal presidential candidate. Back in the day, he supported racism. He supported the Iraq War. He's been called Creepy Joe for touching women inappropriately. Some say he won only because he's not Donald Trump, and that is saying a lot. Point number 2, Joe Biden won urban America, the city votes. He got 63% of the vote in urban America. Trump got less than 36%. Trump won the rural vote, 71% of the vote share. Biden got less than 28%. These are two Americas choosing two different presidents. Point number 3, Donald Trump has won 70 million votes, more than what he won in 2016 and more than what any incumbent president has won in an election. Clearly, there's a large number of Americans who are still rooting for Trump, who still believe in him, who believe Donald Trump when he says the vote was stolen. And this is the biggest challenge for Joe Biden. Not Trump's lawsuits, but the distrust of almost half of America's voters. This is his biggest task, to unite the United States of America. I know it sounds like a sweeping statement, I'll explain. Donald Trump has divided his country, and while he may be on his way out, the division, the Trumpism, is here to stay. America has been broken into two. The first one that sees nothing wrong in white supremacy. It does not acknowledge the deep-seated systemic racism. It does not believe in science or wearing masks. But it believes in shutting out immigrants, blocking people from Muslim-majority countries, separating children from parents. This is Donald Trump's America, or the section that voted Trump to power in 2016. It is to the appetite of this America that Donald Trump knit his policies and politics. And they voted for him again, 70 million of them. 70 million Americans believe in Trumpism and Trump's policies. It is no wonder that Trump enjoyed a steady approval rating of over 40% through his term in office. And this 40% make up the America that believes in brushing aside facts as fake news. It is the same America that cheered Trump's border wall and refuses to believe Trump lost the election.
The media said what? The media said Joe Biden's president. Ha 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 ha
This was televangelist Kenneth Copeland mocking the media for calling the election in Joe Biden's favor. He is part of the America that believes in Trumpism. What is the other America? It's the one that disapproves of Trump, the one that rallied against him and voted for Joe Biden. Today, the two Americas are deeply distrustful of one another. They disagree with each other's beliefs, with their policies and plans. Let me put this in numbers for you. 76% of Biden voters said that racial ethnic inequality would be very important to their votes. Just 24% of Trump supporters agreed. 74% of Trump supporters said violent crime was very important to them. Only 46% of Biden voters agreed. When it came to race, 74% Biden voters said it is a lot more difficult to be a black person in the US. Only 9% of Trump's voters agreed. 59% of those who backed Biden said white people benefit a great deal from advantages in society. Only 5% of Trump's voters agreed to this. Clearly, there is a divide in the United States, a divide that was color-coded in red and blue this election. The blue retained the Senate, the red kept the House. Going forward, the challenge will be to unite them in the interest of the USA. Let's talk about the president-elect, Joe Biden. He's been in public life for decades, We know all about his worldview, but how does the world view him and his victory? It's a mixed bag. America's European allies are ecstatic. The stock markets are surging to new highs, but there is apprehension in some quarters, both inside and outside the US.
Saturday, November the 7th, Joe Biden wins his home state, Pennsylvania, and clinches the White House. World leaders send in their wishes. They want a place in the good books of America's president-elect. European leaders are upbeat. French President Emmanuel Macron seemed eager to get started. Lot to do to overcome today's challenges, he tweeted. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she was looking forward to working with the new administration. America's closest ally, Britain, was a bit late to react. When he did, Prime Minister Boris Johnson talked about working on shared priorities like trade and climate. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he was looking forward to working with Biden. He also had a special tweet for Kamala Harris, saying her victory was a matter of pride for all Indian Americans. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg called Joe Biden a strong supporter of the alliance. In West Asia, Biden's election triggered a wait-and-watch game. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took a whole day to congratulate him. He followed it up with a thank you note for Trump. Another key ally, Saudi Arabia, also took more than a day. And when the message finally came, it sounded more bureaucratic than warm. Not surprisingly, Iran sounded hopeful, urging Biden to step away from what it described as Trump's wrong path. America's former presidents also congratulated the newest member of their club. Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George Bush and Barack Obama sent their wishes to Joe Biden. Trump's fellow Republican George Bush said the election was fundamentally fair. So did former GOP candidate Mitt Romney. Romney said Trump was entitled to legal challenges, but condemned claims that the polls were rigged. But 48 hours on, a few leaders are yet to react. Their silence tells a story. Top of the list is Russian President Vladimir Putin. In 2016, the Kremlin congratulated Trump within hours of the election being called. But this time, nothing. Another silent figure, Chinese President Xi Jinping. Earlier today, Beijing's foreign ministry made it clear. Don't expect a congratulatory message from us. The tropical Trump has also been mum. For Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro, Trump's loss is personal. He has lost a close friend in the White House. America's southern neighbor, Mexico, is yet to congratulate Biden. President Obrador said he would wait until all legal matters are resolved. Every leader has their own reason for not congratulating Joe Biden. For some, it's geopolitical. Others just can't stand to see a friend lose. Either way, their silence has implications. It's an early indication of an adversarial relationship. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And we just heard that Donald Trump has unfollowed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So interesting times ahead. No such issues on Wall Street, though, of a lack of confidence in what's happening in America. The stock market surged on news of a Biden win. Investors are hoping for a new fiscal stimulus bill and fewer disruptions under Joe Biden. And this rally was in fact seen all over the world. Indices in Europe, China, Hong Kong, Australia and Japan, even in India, booked huge gains. The world economy is expecting fewer trade wars and perhaps fewer 2 a.m. policy announcements from the new US president. Halfway across the world, another election has just concluded. This is in Myanmar. If America is the oldest democracy in the world, Myanmar is among the youngest. Vote counting is currently underway. Results are expected to take at least a couple of days, but there is unanimous agreement that Aung San Suu Kyi will retain power. Questions of voter suppression and ethnic conflict, though, continue to linger. Here's a report.
Ballot counting seems to be the norm this November. These officials in Myanmar are hard at work, counting the millions of votes cast in the general election. But there is no nail-biting finish expected here. Aung San Suu Kyi is on course to win a second term. For the record, we still don't have the official results. Only early trends released by the poll authorities. Suu Kyi's party, National League for Democracy, is leading these early returns. Celebrations have already begun.
Global warming is a big factor. Rain doesn't fall on time. Government had installed tube wells, but irrigation doesn't happen on time either. We want the government to do something about this.
Myanmar's elections were held under difficult circumstances. A growing COVID-19 outbreak, a worsening economic situation, and a deepening ethnic divide. In urban centers like Yangon, there were long lines at polling stations. But in the countryside, it was a different affair. Over 1 million people were unable to vote, mostly in the Rakhine state. Election authorities cancelled the polls, citing safety reasons. 600,000 Rohingya Muslims were also denied the vote. Suu Kyi continues to remain popular in Myanmar's heartland. Her fight for democracy is still fresh in the minds of people. But globally, her reputation has taken a beating. Her defense of the Rohingya crackdown at the Hague court was condemned. It could be a couple of days before we have the complete results. 322 is the magic number. But Suu Kyi's party is confident of winning more. Some party men are talking about a repeat of the 2015 landslide when the party won 390 seats. Back then, a power-sharing agreement saw Suu Kyi cede space to the military. In Myanmar, a quarter of the seats in both houses are reserved for them. This time around, she's hoping for an even larger mandate to amend the constitution. But experts say this is highly unlikely. The strong turnout indicates popular support for democracy. But the question is, can its leaders keep their end of the bargain? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Let's talk about Nepal now. After some days of peace, there's infighting in the ruling party there. Pushpa Kamal Dahal or Prachand is once again unhappy with his partner, KP Sharma Oli, the Prime Minister of Nepal. Both sides have resumed their tussle for power. Prachand and Oli joined hands in 2018. They merged their parties together to create the Nepal Communist Party. They won the 2018 general election, but since then, both leaders have frequently engaged in a tussle for power. The ruling party is now divided into two camps, the Oli camp and the Prachand camp. Reports say both sides have launched a signature campaign to prove that they are bigger than the other. And this comes at a time when India and Nepal have managed to reach a thaw. Key members of the Indian establishment have visited Nepal in the past few weeks. It began with the visit of the Raw Chief Samant Kumar Goel in the month of October. Last week, India's Army Chief General M.M. Naravne visited Kathmandu for a 3-day visit. Both officials met with Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. Now, reports say the Prachand camp did not like the idea of Oli meeting them. And it seems like they wanted to be kept in the loop. So they accused Oli of violating the protocol. Here's how the Prime Minister of Nepal has responded to that charge.
The relationship between the two countries has to be enhanced. Who is the representative of which country? The executive head sends which official as their representative? Who will talk? It is not a big deal. No unauthorized official had come. Only the authorized person came. Diplomacy is the most talked about thing, and I did not speak to them in secret.
So Prime Minister Oli says he did nothing wrong. He's the head of state, and in that capacity, he met Indian representatives. Reports say the dialogue will pave the way for high-level visits from both sides. and this could calm the tensions kicked off by a border and territorial dispute. According to the Nepalese press, Nepal's Prime Minister discussed the border issue with the Indian Army Chief. Nepal is keen on resumption of high-level visits in different sectors. Reports also say that Prime Minister Oli told General Naravne that any misunderstanding can be resolved through talks. The Army Chief had travelled to Nepal last week. He was conferred the title of Honorary General of the Nepal Army, and this is a decades-old tradition. It began in 1950 when General K.M. Cariappa was decorated with the same title. The practice began as an effort to reflect the strong ties between the militaries of both countries. By conferring General Naravne with the same title, Kathmandu has sent a clear message that it remains committed to its partnership with India despite the recent hurdles. And despite the political differences within Nepal, a channel of communication is now open, it seems. Greece has gone into a strict lockdown. This is the second time since March that Greece has shut down. More than 49,000 people have been infected there. But hair salons have been allowed to stay open. This report tells you why.
The Greek economy was hammered in the first lockdown in spring. The Mediterranean nation has recorded over 54,000 cases of infections and 749 fatalities linked to COVID-19. But it is the number of people in intensive care that has got the authorities worried. This pushed the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis to announce another 3 weeks of lockdown. Under the measures, Greeks can only leave their homes when they make an official request via SMS and then receive authorization. Only essential shops, including supermarkets and pharmacies, can stay open. And the police is on the streets to enforce the lockdown.
I don't think it helps at all to bring a country's market to its knees, especially in the time of an economic crisis. We will be saved from the virus, but we will have psychological issues. They can't just close businesses, shops, and people's mental health is in a very bad state.
But interestingly, hair salons have been given an extension till Monday. Although not classified as an essential service, Greek authorities in the last lockdown saw very high rates of flouting of rules by people who wanted to get a trim. This time too, people scrambled to book appointments when they heard about the lockdown.
With the announcement of the lockdown, the phones were ringing off the hook with people desperately asking for appointments. We are in the category of businesses that will be allowed to stay open for 2 more days after the lockdown started.
The government has announced economic relief measures for businesses and workers impacted by the lockdown. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis is hoping for an economic turnaround when the economy reopens ahead of Christmas. But for people losing jobs and seeing their businesses shut, the government relief is just not adequate. Bureau Report, Beyond World is One.
Let me ask you a question. Do you remember what triggered the Ladakh standoff earlier this year? It was China's fear of India's strategic construction. India is constructing roads and airstrips on the Indian side of the LAC, the line of actual control. But it's too much for China to digest. So in the month of May, around 100 tents sprung up on the Chinese side of the Galwan Valley. Back then, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said, and I quote, "China is committed to safeguarding the security of its national territorial sovereignty as well as safeguarding peace and stability in the China-India border areas." A skirmish in June led to the death of 20 Indian soldiers. China lost more men, but never released the numbers. In the months that followed, India took control of strategic heights. China fired shots in Ladakh, but made no gains. There is a stalemate in Ladakh, and the reason I'm telling you about all of this is because 6 months into the standoff, China is doing what it protested. China is constructing along the line of actual control. Chinese President Xi Jinping has asked his men to advance the construction of a rail line in Tibet. The line is 1,000 kilometers long. It connects the Chinese province of Sichuan to Linzhi in Tibet. It costs around $47.8 billion. and reduces the 48-hour travel time to 13 hours. This railway line is also very close to the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh, a state that China claims as its own and calls South Tibet. Speaking on Sunday, Xi Jinping said that the rail line will consolidate China's border stability. What he didn't say is that the line will also tighten Chinese control over Tibet and be crucial in troop mobilization. Now, should you and I bother about this rail construction in China? There are two ways of looking at it. First, through the Chinese lens, one that views every border construction as a provocation, one that viewed the construction of the 255-kilometer-long Darbuk-Shayok-Daulatbek Oldie Road as a threat. Going by that logic, India too should protest this construction near Arunachal Pradesh. India should also protest the construction of a bridge over the Yarlung-Zangbo River in the Tibet Autonomous Region, and all the other border constructions that China has carried out over the years. But India respects international law. India understands sovereignty. It is another story that China does not. Sovereignty is too complex an idea for Beijing. China does not even understand military discipline. In a video recently released by the Global Times, Chinese soldiers were seen applying sunscreen and lip balm. The Chinese mouthpiece said that before heading to patrol, Chinese soldiers apply sunscreen and lip balm, and it makes them look, quote-unquote, cute. The Global Times goes on to say that with all the skincare experience, Chinese soldiers can now provide good recommendations. Take a look at this video.
你的手多涂点知道吧？
不是擦脸是吧？就那种白白的就。
这是擦圆，擦圆，擦圆啊！
涂了。
多涂一点，太干了，不裂了。
Chinese soldiers or skin care influencers, you decide. We'll wrap up the show, leaving you as always with Gravitas Images. Thanks for watching.